The value that the AfCFTA brings to the African continent is immense. How African businesses can leverage AfCFTA to grow their businesses beyond borders is what we're going to be discussing today. Good morning and thank you for joining the Ecobank webinar series on powering the vision of the One Africa market. My name is Simon and I will be the moderator for today's event. I want to thank especially the representative from the AfCFTA, Madam Beatrice Cheto, and our distinguished ladies and gentlemen, esteemed clients and invited guests, and my dear colleagues for finding time to join us for today's event. We have quite a loaded agenda for us today. As we all know, Ecobank is piloting and doing its best to support African businesses to take advantage of AfCFTA. In this line, it is worthy to mention that we are also the proud sponsors of the Inter-Africa Trade Fair that is currently on, and this is one of the commitments we make to our clientele to make sure that we provide them opportunities that will help them grow their businesses. For today's event, this first episode is going to be focusing on what we will be doing as businesses to take advantage of the new single African market and its advantages to us as business persons and entities and entrepreneurs. For today's agenda, we will be having two keynote addresses. The group CEO who was supposed to take the first keynote address sends his apologies. He's unable to make it to today's event because of some changes in his itinerary. He's duly represented by the group executive for commercial banking, Madam Josephine, who will be taking us deeper on the ideology behind powering the One Africa market. Immediately after that, we will be taking a second keynote address from a representative from the AfCFTA, Madam Beatrice Cheto, who will be discussing with us how we can facilitate seamlessly cross-border business. Immediately after that, we will be taking 10 minutes for questions and answers that you might have. And then immediately after that, we will be going into the value propositions that Ecobank has for our clientele. And this will be handled by Suleiman Dian, who is the group head of trade business at Ecobank. And he will be discussing how we can leverage AfCFTA to unlock opportunities for growth in our various businesses. If you have any questions or queries, please go to the Q&A session. It's a small chat box on the right-hand corner of your screen and type your questions. We will do our possible best to make sure that all the questions are attended to. At this moment, I'm going to step back a bit and invite Vera Aite-Smith to give us the opening remarks. Vera, your audience.
Thank you, Simon, and good morning to you, cherished customers and partners. Thank you for making time to join us today. Trade, simply put, is an economic concept involving the buying and selling of goods and services. It's as old as human life. African history speaks of ancient Mali, a major financial power built on trade and commerce. We read the stories of Mansa Musa's legendary wealth as a trader in gold, salt, and shells. We also read about the important trade routes of other nations like the Ghana Empire and Timbuktu, who traded in kola nuts, ivory, cloth, and beads across the Sahara. Those days may no longer be with us, and we may not be trading in the same goods. Trade, however, continues to flourish and definitely is a part of our lives today. Today, we have the African Continental Free Trade Area, an exciting game changer that potentially creates the largest trade area in the world, connecting 1.3 billion people across 55 countries with a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion. It aims to increase trade between African nations by progressively reducing tariff and non-tariff barriers, facilitating the movement of goods and services, and possibly reducing restrictions on foreign direct investment. The UN Economic Commission for Africa estimates that AfCFTA will boost intra-African trade by 52.3% once import duties and non-tariff barriers are eliminated. As a business owner, you are probably asking yourself the question, how can I effectively harness the opportunity AfCFTA brings to grow my business? We hope to provide you with some answers today. Promoting the economic development and financial integration of Africa is central to our mission as a bank, and we see AfCFTA as a catalyst to our continent's development. Today, we will showcase the pivotal role Ecobank is playing to facilitate both domestic and international trade. We will also share with you some of our recent initiatives, including Elevate by Ecobank, our offering targeted at women-owned businesses and women-focused businesses, the business account, as well as the benefits of our digital solutions. We are also delighted to have with us Mrs. Beatrice Chato from the AfCFTA Secretariat to provide up-to-date information on the operational phase of the agreement and how you, our commercial banking customer, can benefit from the numerous trade opportunities. We look forward to an engaging session with you. And now, I have the pleasure to invite our Group Executive for Commercial Banking, Josephine Annan Ankuma, to share with us her thoughts on powering the vision of one African market. Josephine, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vera, and a warm welcome to all of you, and hearty greetings from our Group Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Ade Ayemi, who unfortunately couldn't be with us here, but sends his warm regards and is fully in support of this initiative. Mrs. Beatrice Chato, Senior Expert Trade and Services from the AfCFTA Secretariat, business owners, esteemed clients, fellow Ecobankers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining this new webinar series from Ecobank, which seeks to explain how your business can take advantage of Africa's new single market. This is the first in a series under the theme, Powering the Vision of One African Market, and is part of our ongoing initiatives to drive intra-African trade and business growth. In our view, there is no better time than now, as we are in the first year of operations of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Our continent is at a unique and transformational juncture in its history, and at Ecobank, a pioneer in the Pan-African ideology, we want to nurture, position, and help micro, small, and medium-sized businesses to take advantage of the growth and development opportunities created by AfCFTA. Informal cross-border trade across the continent has been the X factor in Africa's economic life. It is either underestimated or goes unrecorded at official posts. There are a myriad of cases to pick from. For example, 30% of Uganda's exports to neighbors were attributable to small-scale cross-border trade totaling $1 billion. Similarly, more than half of Rwanda's imports from Burundi and a quarter of imports from the Democratic Republic of Congo are through small-scale trade. It is estimated that West Africa's informal cross-border trade in staple foods represents about 30% of West Africa's total regional trade. Women are said to constitute as much as 80% of informal cross-border traders. It is out of these informal but established trade routes that the regional economic communities, such as the Economic Community of West African States, the East African Community, and the Southern African Development Community, emerged. The African Continental Free Trade Area is the second biggest trading bloc in the world by number of member states. Its principal objective is to break down the barriers that have hindered the African trader. The AfCFTA was established with a transformative agenda to create a single market by progressively removing the trade barriers on intra-African cross-border trade in goods and services. It will also help progressively dismantle the non-tariff barriers that have long impeded intra-African trade. This means that 54 countries are joined in a single market with a combined GDP of about $3 trillion. In addition to creating a single market for goods and services, the AfCFTA also aims to facilitate the movement of people and investment, promote industrial development and diversification, enhance commercial and economic competitiveness, develop value-added processing capabilities, encourage foreign investment through the creation of a large market, and reduce Africa's trade dependence on overseas markets. Currently, only $17 out of every $100 of African exports go to other African countries. This is a far cry from the European Union's 73% for intra-European trade and Asia's 52% for intra-Asia trade. Those figures, however, show what is possible. For the African trader, the AfCFTA offers the possibility of amplifying the huge trade opportunities that businesses can grasp. How? By broadening the market and customer base to encompass all of Africa. Our historically low intracontinental trade volumes always masked on paper what was evident at our borders, that trade was thriving. Part of the AfCFTA's success will be predicated upon improving market information about the goods and services that are available in other African countries. It will remove much of the need to import much goods or services from outside the African continent and ultimately boost intra-African trade. We also need to increase value-added processing within Africa, rather than continuing our old habit of exporting raw materials out of Africa to other parts of the world. These are just a few of the opportunities that micro, small, and medium-sized companies, as well as established large corporate businesses, could benefit from. MSMEs are vital to Africa's economic future and the creation of our continent's much-needed employment opportunities. The AfCFTA can help in many ways. For example, the AfCFTA will ease the process of importing raw materials from other African countries. It will also enable SMEs to set up assembly plants in other African countries in order to access cheaper means of production. It will ease the process of importing raw materials from other African countries, thus reducing costs and production capacity. It will further foster specialization and boost industrialization. As a result, it will increase employment, investment, and technological development. It will provide opportunities to enter new markets, expand customer base, and create new products and services. It will deliver growth in value chains, which will boost both local and intra-African businesses. At Ecobank, our decades of knowledge across 33 markets in the continent effectively positions us to raise awareness and help businesses to leverage the benefits of the AfCFTA to grow and expand regionally. Over the past few years, we have positioned ourselves as the Pan-African bank for SMEs through our comprehensive suite of dedicated solutions. Recently, we were named Africa's SME Bank of the Year, not once, but twice. Indeed, we are the go-to bank in each of our 33 markets. The vision of one African market is not a new ideology. However, we are now closer than ever to making it a reality, and African MSMEs are pivotal to achieving this. Here are a few examples of initiatives that we have implemented to support SMEs and micro businesses just like yours. We have partnered with Alder Nepat's 100,000 MSMEs initiative for micro, small, and medium-sized businesses. In June this year, we offered the MSME Training for Financing program to over 400 SMEs to boost their knowledge in risk management, business sustainability and bankability, adapting operations to COVID-19 realities, business compliance and leadership, and access to funding. To assist micro and small businesses to leverage Africa's exponential growth in e-commerce, we launched the Ecobank e-commerce solution, which enables businesses like yours to advertise goods and services, find new customers through online marketplaces, and harness e-commerce to grow sales in partnership with Flutterwave, DPO, and iPay. Together with Google, we are providing our SMEs with access to markets. This is possible through the development of an online presence using the Google My Business platform at no cost to these businesses. We hope to reach over 500,000 Ecobank Commercial Bank customers and potential customers in the years ahead. Our partnership with Microsoft's Global Skilling Initiative has helped to upskill and equip over 20,000 business owners and their staff across our markets with marketing, communications, financial and data analysis in an increasingly digital world. And this training is still ongoing, and all you need to do is to go online and look for the link, and you can register and complete this course before the end of the year at no cost to you. Our recently launched and multiple award-winning Elevate by Ecobank program provides women-owned, led or focused businesses with a comprehensive range of financial and non-financial services to help them grow. The AfCFTA is an exciting game changer for Africa's businesses and economies, and a needed boost for Africa's post-COVID-19 economic recovery efforts. I urge you as African businesses to make sure that you grasp the benefits and opportunities, and remember that Ecobank is committed to helping you succeed. We reiterate our resolve to deliver on the promise of our founding fathers by positioning Ecobank as the go-to bank for AfCFTA. We are committed to supporting African businesses harness the opportunities through tailor-made and affordable products, services, and solutions. We will partner with you as we collectively power the vision of the One African Market. Thank you very much.
Very insightful message there to African businesses on the purpose of the AfCFTA and how that it is essential for all of us to take advantage of the opportunities that the AfCFTA presents. Core to this is the fact that the AfCFTA grants access to a consumer base of about 1.2 billion people, right? And a market size which is second largest in the entire world, that has a GDP of about 3 trillion. When we lower tariff and non-tariff barriers, then it means that African businesses will have an opportunity to favorably compete. Thank you very much, Ma, for that wonderful message. I am going to, at this point, introduce the second speaker. But before I do that, I want to remind you to send your messages and your questions and inquiries to the chat box on the right-hand top corner of your screen, and we will make sure that we attend to each and every one of them. The second speaker is a guest from the AfCFTA in the person of Madam Beatrice Cheto, a senior expert in trades in services who works with the AfCFTA. She's an international trade lawyer specializing in providing advice and support to African governments in their engagement with regional and international trade policy processes. It is with great honor that we welcome you, Madam Beatrice, to this great event. Thank you very much, and the audience is yours.
Thank you very much, Simon, and I want to just take the opportunity to thank Ecobank very much for inviting the AfCFTA Secretariat to participate, to have the opportunity to participate in this very important webinar. As you know, the AfCFTA is really all about enabling African business to expand, to grow, to take advantage of this single African market for goods and services. The AfCFTA, as you know, is the most exciting initiative to happen to Africa in decades, as Josephine has just reminded us. And the possibilities are truly endless if the opportunities can be seized and acted upon for lifting millions from poverty to wealth generation. The AfCFTA consists of its framework agreement and 3 protocols on goods, services, and dispute settlement. It seeks to expand intra-Africa trade by lowering trade barriers to goods and services, as well as enabling the movement of people throughout the continent. The start of trading under the AfCFTA was launched on 1st January 2021. Tariffs on a range of products will be reduced to 0 over time. Progressive liberalization will take place for trade in all services sectors, starting with business, communication, financial, tourism, and transport services in the first round of services negotiations. The AfCFTA will also contain legal instruments on competition policy, investment, intellectual property rights, digital trade, and women in trade. So my presentation today is going to really be about how the opportunities that are presented in the AfCFTA agreement can be presented in a way that is easy for African business and particularly SMEs to take advantage of. So the outline of my presentation is thus. Basically, I'll cover what is the AfCFTA, what is it designed to do, how does it help African business, specifically SMEs, and how can SMEs take advantage of the AfCFTA to help their businesses grow? So what is the African Continental Free Trade Area? It is one of the flagship projects of the African Union's Agenda 2063, which is the Africa we want. It's an ambitious effort by African countries to expand intra-Africa trade by lowering the trade barriers to goods and services, as well as enabling the movement of people throughout the continent. In effect, when you lower the trade costs, you lower the cost of doing business, you enable trade. And it covers a market of 1.2 billion people and a gross domestic product of 2.5 trillion at the moment across all 55 African states. And as Josephine reminded us, it will be the world's largest free trade area in respect of participating countries. Africa's population is projected to reach 2.5 billion by 2050. By that time, it will comprise 26% of the world's working age population, with an economy that is estimated to grow twice as rapidly as that of the developed world. In effect, by 2060, Africa's GDP is forecast to grow by 16 trillion. The AfCFTA, which is the trade area and shouldn't be confused with the agreement itself, which is the legal document, is established by this legal agreement or treaty, which is the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area. And it aims to ease the flow of goods and services across national borders. African businesses at the moment face over 107 unique land borders when trading within the continent. Imagine that. The average tariff tends to be about 63, I beg your pardon. Let me just go back to that slide. I lost count of my slides. I beg your pardon. Sorry. So considerable costs for business. I beg your pardon. Am I still sharing? I've lost count. I've lost track of where I am.
You are. We can see your screen. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, I lost track of my. Yes, here I am. So essentially, I was saying that considerable business costs are presented by business because of the average tariffs. And here it is where just a pretty picture to show you in 2018, on the 21st of March, the Africa Single Market was created. Now, what is the African Continental Free Trade Area? These are the key milestones. It was signed into law by 44 AU heads of state on the 21st of March. It entered into force on the 30th of May 2019 after the deposit of the 22nd instrument of ratification. I should say that this was done in record time, considering that many AU treaties had been languishing and hadn't entered into force, hadn't been ratified, hadn't been signed. It now currently has 54 signatories and 39 state parties. And as I said at the beginning, the start of trading was the 1st of January 2021. Now, as I mentioned, there are three protocols: the Protocol on Trade in Goods, the Protocol on Trade in Services, and also the Protocol on Trade on Dispute Settlement. However, in terms of your business community, the Protocol on Trade in Goods and the Protocol on Trade in Services are very important for them. Under the Protocol on Trade in Goods, duties and quantitative restrictions on imports will be eliminated. Non-tariff barriers will be gradually eliminated. Rules of origin will make it simpler for businesses that have predominant African content in their products to qualify as originating products and therefore take advantage of the concessions on the AfCFTA. There will be cooperation between customs authorities that make it easy and seamless for products to cross borders. Trade facilitation and transit will also ease the process of doing business. There will be protection for infant industries, general exceptions, especially where there are a surge in imports. Countries will be able to make use of trade remedies to try to protect their domestic industry. Then there will be cooperation over product standards and regulations. There will be a process for technical assistance and capacity building and cooperation, because as we all know, not all African countries are at equal levels, and there are differing stages of development. Under the Protocol on Trade in Services, there will be transparency for service regulations that make it easier for service suppliers and services to cross borders. There will be mutual recognition of standards, licensing and certification of services suppliers, progressive liberalization of service sectors, and service suppliers will be able to be treated no less favorably than those in the domestic market. And there will be provision for general and security exception, because for every rule, there's an exception. There's a protocol on dispute settlement, which basically helps to protect against any disputes when creates certainty, predictability in the single market. And then under phase 2 negotiations, which have actually been merged by the phase 3 negotiations on intellectual property rights, investment, competition policy, e-commerce, digital trade, women in trade. So there's a very sort of holistic way of looking at the AfCFTA. It's not just an agreement designed to just move goods and services, but also to buttress that that trade by providing competition policy, driving investment, protection of creative inventions and things like that through intellectual property rights, and then taking advantage, of course, of the fourth industrial revolution, whilst at the same time ensuring that women, who are predominantly the players in SMEs, have a chance at taking advantage of the AfCFTA. And this just provides you a way of doing your own research and finding out more about the AfCFTA agreement, the status of signatures, and the different annexes. Because under the Protocol on Trade in Goods alone, there are 9 annexes. And under the Protocol on Trade in Services, at the moment, there are only like 2 annexes, but there will be more. So essentially, what is the AfCFTA designed to do? Overall, it will open greater economic opportunities for businesses across the state parties by creating a market environment that promotes certainty, predictability, and transparency. Specifically, it provides through, for instance, progressive liberalization of services. Service suppliers will have access to the markets of all state parties on terms no less favorable than those of the domestic suppliers. There will be cooperation between customs authorities over product standards and regulations, as well as trade transit and facilitation. Traders that face non-tariff barriers, including burdensome customs procedures or over excessive paperwork, will be able to report and have that removed through the online reporting mechanism. African businesses, traders, and consumers will no longer pay tariffs on a large variety of goods that they trade with. So about 90% of tariffs will be eliminated over time. So essentially, the nutshell of this AfCFTA is that it will provide greater economies of scale in production. It provides better opportunities for networking and complementarity between businesses, especially between like SMEs and larger corporations, or amongst a whole group of SMEs, if you think about a clustering approach, and then enhanced collaboration among businesses and their eventual participation in regional value chains, because that's another character of the AfCFTA, that it will develop and sustain regional value chains. And then, of course, as I've already mentioned, on phase 2, there will be provision for intellectual property rights, a dispute settlement mechanism, where there's unanticipated trade surges, there'll be trade remedies, there'll be mutual recognition of standards, licensing and certification, and essentially the development of regional value chains. Now, how does the AfCFTA agreement help African businesses or SMEs? Remember that the African private sector is a significant AfCFTA stakeholder. The private sector in Africa accounts for 80% of total production, 2/3 of total investment, three quarters of lending within Africa, 90% of employed working age population, and SMEs are really the backbone of the African private sector, accounting for over 90% of total businesses and 63% of employment. Now, in terms of how businesses can leverage some specific provisions of the agreement, In the rules of origin, there's an annex under the Protocol on Trade and Services. Those businesses that use significant African content in their products will qualify, will ensure that those products qualify as originating products in terms of raw materials and value addition. The more they add value, the more African content the products have, the more they will take advantage of the AfCFTA preferential trade regime. Then under the annex on sanitary and phytosanitary standards, that focuses on ensuring harmonization of standards, licensing and certification across the continent, making it easy for SMEs to meet export standards and satisfy regulatory requirements. Simplifying customs administration and systems under the Customs Cooperation Annex will help streamline procedures for trade. And I've already mentioned the online reporting and monitoring mechanism for non-tariff barriers will help to reduce and eliminate non-tariff barriers. In the Protocol on Trade and Services, there's a right to regulate in accordance with national policy objectives. Now, if those national policy objectives include private sector development that affects SMEs, then the domestic regulations of the state party will be able to ensure that the policy objective is kind of seen through that lens in terms of implementing the whole protocol. In Article 27 of the Protocol on Trade and Services, it talks about the export capacity of informal and formal businesses. They have, especially women service suppliers, they have to be improved, but how? That is only if member states schedule specific commitments and develop regulatory frameworks that will ensure that, for instance, women engineers, IT professionals can be upskilled and have their qualifications recognized in other territories in the AfCFTA space. And talking about women-led SMEs, the preamble of the agreement stresses the importance of gender equality in the development of the AfCFTA. It links transformation of the continent on the promotion and attainment of gender equality in Article 3 of the agreement. And so you could just use that to say, each provision of the agreement that is being implemented then has to be looked at very strategically. How can that provision then be used to promote and attain the objective of gender equality right throughout the rest of the provisions of the agreement? One way that SMEs can take advantage of the AfCFTA is through value chain development and industrialization. The creation of regional value chains becomes easier through reducing trade costs, as I mentioned at the beginning, because when you drive the tariffs down, you reduce non-tariff barriers, you reduce overall trade costs. Also, facilitating investment in vital infrastructure like roads, ports, bridges, etc., as well as developing industry. SMEs can supply inputs to larger regional companies in the value chain, moving them up the value chain. That means that they get into more valuable sectors such as marketing, industrial processing, STEM, etc. Industrialization will then in turn drive increased trade in services, in transport, ICT, financial, energy, construction, etc. Then the job market will be open to graduates, to professionals who can upgrade their skill sets to accommodate the increase in economic activity that is generated by the AfCFTA. And then we shouldn't forget the African diaspora, whether they are entrepreneurs or professionals. They can bring skills, they can bring investment, they can bring technology to influence this, the entrepreneurial cadres and influence the single market generally. And in terms of value chain development and industrialization, we need to know the picture of it. Where are SMEs in the regional value chains? We need to know how competitive they are. Is there any comparative advantage that can be developed into competitive advantage? SMEs will have to understand the markets that they want to supply and the specific requirements of those markets, especially when it comes to standards, technical specifications, design, etc. I gave some examples of just through my my work, what I've seen, how what the possibilities might be. So, for instance, West Africa doesn't have a tradition of fresh dairy products, but East Africa has. So, through transport and logistics, through a cold chain, East and West Africa can trade in fresh dairy products. Fonio, because fonio, which is millet, is used as a grain in West Africa, but in East and Southern Africa, it's used as a porridge. So through warehousing, marketing, branding, you could use fonio as a grain, or through cereal products, you could have that trade. Tourism packages between West and Central Africa. When it's wet in West and Central Africa, it's probably dry in East and Southern Africa. So through ICT and financial services, tourism can be developed and sustained through package tours, through other ways, through ecotourism, etc. And then cotton products between West Africa and North Africa. We all know about Egypt's advances in textiles, you know, through, but where you have Benin and Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, those countries producing pure cotton through transport and financial services, that value chain could be developed between West and North Africa. Just some suggestions. And then talking about that in terms of value chain, SMEs can take advantage of the increased manufacturing and agribusiness by bringing down the cost of trade. That increases manufacturing. Increasing investments in infrastructure will enhance competitiveness of agribusiness producers. Many women are key players in the production of perishable food products, and that requires a cold chain to be maintained. It involves storage, long distance transportation, and then finally, digitization of the supply chains. The rapid expansion of e-commerce platforms can all benefit SMEs if entrepreneurs in SMEs can upgrade their managerial and technical skills. But they need capacity building and training to do that. So by promoting access to and opportunities in trade, by building the technical and managerial capacities of entrepreneurs, that gives them reasonable facilities and opportunities to realize their potential. And then providing capacity building that helps SMEs to improve their marketing activities in order to strengthen the export competitiveness of their products and services, moves them up the value chain, helps them formalize their businesses and grow their business. We can also mention issues that are dear to Ecobank's heart, which is access to finance and credit. And we need to inquire, what are the specific needs of entrepreneurs in terms of access to finance, access to knowledge, access to basic infrastructure? How can some specific funds be set up for SMEs or women-owned businesses? I was very interested to hear about the initiatives that Ecobank is doing in partnership with others that Josephine highlighted. How can we improve the capacity to take advantage of the AfCFTA? And what role is there for the African diaspora in that? We need to think about increased financial services inclusion for entrepreneurs and professionals so that when national governments are developing their AfCFTA implementation strategies, they can include issues like that: access to finance, access to credit, use of savings, etc. And then, of course, we all know that SMEs and businesses are doing it for themselves anyway through business networking. So more awareness needs to be created amongst the private sector about the potential of the AfCFTA, and then use that for entrepreneurs to tap into their available business networks, business training opportunities, and then helping them to access necessary trade information and credit channels. I think all of these are critical factors in the success of SMEs in trade, arming them for the competition that they will face with their trading partners. Business groups can also lobby their respective governments to ensure that the required trade infrastructure is in place for them to take advantage of the opportunities, such as the single window, streamlining through SEZs and things like that. And of course, even as we develop the negotiations and develop the provisions, business and private sector should have a seat at the table where decisions are being made. That includes participation in policy making and decision making about the AfCFTA, such as standard setting, for instance, that would enable products to move easily through the value chain. Leadership positions need to be created for women, especially young women. Private sector needs to be more dynamic to ensure that their meaningful participation in the negotiation and policy processes ensure their interests are served. And of course, there's a need to encourage participation of SMEs in delegations of private sector in national trade promotion missions and programs. Then, of course, there are other issues such as rights to land, accessing investments, taxation, skills development, access to educational facilities. These are all factors in the ways that entrepreneurs and professionals can make use of the opportunities in the AfCFTA. Access to trade, knowledge, and intelligence by SMEs, showing where the opportunities are, gives them the potential to develop value chains, obtain products, and supply their products and services to consumers. My concluding thoughts in this webinar are, there is everything to play for in the AfCFTA space. The AfCFTA is just a tool. It's one tool that can be used effectively for sustainable growth and wealth creation for all African businesses and professionals. But a tool is only as powerful as the hand that wields it. So we need to make use of that tool that we have. And then all businesses need to be more dynamic to ensure their meaningful participation in all aspects of the implementation of the AfCFTA that will ensure their interests are served. But if the provisions of the AfCFTA agreement can be leveraged for the benefit of the private sector, the possibilities, I believe, are truly endless for the African private sector in the AfCFTA space. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to the discussion that takes place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Beatrice, for such deep thoughts. It is indeed in our hands to change the African landscape by ensuring that we implement AfCFTA appropriately and guide businesses right to be able to take the advantages that the AfCFTA presents. Thank you once again for that presentation. We will be going into the Q&A session. I have a couple of questions already in the question box, so I hope, Josephine, you haven't gone very far, because this is actually the Q&A section covering both your presentation and Madam Beatrice's. So let me start from the Q&A box. There is a gentleman here, James Nwa Ogaga. He's asking two questions in one, and I'm going to direct this at Josephine, and then the other questions I'll direct at you, Madam Beatrice. He's saying, how can we be connected to firms in South Africa, Ghana, and Liberia, leveraging AfCFTA? And I'm sure that this question is stemming from the diverse network that Ecobank has on the African landscape. So, Madam Josephine, if you can take a go at this one before I direct the second question to Madam Beatrice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'll start off and I'll let Suleiman continue off with this. But what we are doing at Ecobank is to create what we call a matchmaking platform, where we are creating a database of all importers and exporters across our markets, and mining the value chain in terms of also making clear what each of them have to offer. So on that platform, if you are exporting cotton, we would try and bring people onto that platform who buy cotton and help to facilitate that matchmaking process. I'll let Suleiman speak to that broadly, but we have that. It's one of the key things that we're looking to do to support businesses across Africa. Find where demand is, where supply is, match it, and then use the Ecobank rails to facilitate that trade opportunity that will come up. Suleiman, if you can provide more clarity.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Josephine. Good morning and a warm welcome to our audience. So my name is Suleiman and I head the trade business for the Ecobank Group. So to address that question, and indeed, we basically would want our customers as our partners to mine on our Pan-African banking platform. And to do that, we want to be able to basically facilitate trade between our clients. And the way we do that is basically ensuring that we leverage on the platform to basically be able to match make. So just like Josephine has said, if we have a client selling, let's say, some groundnut out of Senegal, and we have another client looking at the same product, we want to be able to matchmake. And this is not to say that matchmaking is not being made as we speak, but we want to also leverage on our platform to basically ensure that between the exporter and the importer, they basically have trust in between themselves in order to move from having the contact in order to get into a contracting. And we will be doing that into some of the trade product that I'll be covering later on. And I'm sure that we can then address more deeply this specific point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josephine and Suleiman. So, Madam Beatrice, the second question is coming towards you. The question here says, I understand there are 54 signatories and 39 state parties to this agreement, that is the AfCFTA. Does this mean that businesses can only trade with or between the registered state parties only?
You are correct that it is only those countries that are state parties, in other words, that have the binding obligations under the AfCFTA agreement that in effect are in which the market is now in effect. The market is now then, if you want to put the word active, in those countries, because they have the obligations to they in effect have taken on board the obligations by ratifying. So it is the 39 countries in which actually serve as the current AfCFTA trade space, but it will get wider. It will get wider. I believe all the countries will eventually ratify.
Okay, thank you very much. While you're still on the floor, Madam Beatrice, let me just ask you this question. It is important that state parties' participation in the implementation of the AfCFTA, is pushed and put in the forefront. From where you stand at the center and as a coordinator, are you seeing that, support from state parties, in terms of the protocols and the engagements and collaboration in order to make AfCFTA work the way it was designed to?
Indeed, there is such momentum and such commitment. I have to tell you that the commitment goes all the way to the top. In fact, the commitment of the heads of state through their constant setting of very ambitious deadlines shows that the heads of state want this done yesterday. They need this AfCFTA. They can see the value of it, and they can see that it is necessary for Africa to take hold of its economic progress itself. And then that trickles down to the Council of Ministers. All the trade ministers are always in effect on the backs of the technocrats, saying, where are the documents? What are you bringing to us? As you know that you've got the framework in place, and there are still some negotiations which kind of represent the kind of meat on the bones of this raw skeleton of the AfCFTA. So the tariff schedules, the schedules of specific commitments of the services under trade and services are still to be negotiated and finalized, but we are constantly being pushed to try to get that done. So the commitment is there at all levels, right up to the heads of state, as well as down to the chief negotiators and different thematic leads that are dealing with all different aspects of the AfCFTA.
Thank you very much. The next question is directed at both Suleiman and Madam Josephine. It's important that we take cognizance of the nature of the businesses that make up the African market. There are large corporates, medium local corporates, and then there are SMEs, and then the micros. So I know we're yet to get to Suleiman's presentation, but maybe we should just touch on this a little bit before we get there. In the plan for Ecobank towards, driving the One Africa Market agenda, is there a plan in place for the diversities of businesses across the area?
We have the right products for the right customer segments. Of course, we have spoken to our Elevate program, which is specifically tailored at women. We have our SME and MSMEs. We understand the fact that they don't have financial statements. We have products that we're able to sell to them, on the back of the cash flows that we are able to ring fence. So we have product programs that are designed, we have payment solutions. So across the entire spectrum, if you're an MSME, you are a young entrepreneur, you are a mature local corporate, irrespective of where you are in the life cycle, we have products that are designed to suit your needs, and we continually reinvent as well. And Suleiman in his presentation will touch on each of these products in detail. So let's wait for his presentation. But yes, we have products for each customer segment within, and even if it has to do within our consumer banking space, within our corporate banking space, and within the commercial banking space, which deals with African SMEs, we have the right products and payment solutions and digital and technological support to drive these products. Yes, we do.
Thank you very much, Ma. We do not have much time, but let's just sneak in one last question, and I'm directing this one to Madam Beatrice. Someone on the platform here is saying, I don't trade in goods. I'm a consultant, and across Africa, and I deal in various states. His question is, what can I benefit as a consultant from the AfCFTA? Thank you.
So as a consultant, it seems to me that you're a service provider, you're a service supplier. So I don't know what you're a consultant in, but say, for instance, you're a management consultant, then you would then watch to see whether, what the conditions of entry are for providing your service to different parts of Africa. I don't know which country you sit in. So you could just check to see, how are the barriers coming down for entry, because movement of professionals, of service professionals, is absolutely critical to enabling those services to be traded. So that's what I would say in terms of under services. Mode 4 supply is one of the ways in which the trade in services can be encouraged through temporary movement of professionals. So if you're a management consultant, then I would say watch to see how your services can be supplied either across the border. You could even sit in there are two ways. You could sit in your country of origin, and through electronic means, email, video conferencing, like what we're doing now, you could, supply your service to another country, or you could move physically through air, through sea, if possible, even to deliver your service to another country, and deliver and trade. You could effectively trade your services in that manner. I just wanted to ask I hope that helps to answer your question, and I wondered if I might just ask a question to Josephine about one of the initiatives that is supporting the AfCFTA and whether Ecobank has any plans for it. I hope that you've heard about the Pan-African payment system.
Yes.
Which is designed to help broaden financial services and ensure, the costs of financial services as they're traded and made available comes down. And I was just wondering if what Ecobank thinks about it, and if there are any plans to participate in it. I know that for now it's just a pilot project in West Africa, but I just curious about what your plans might be for it, without giving anything away.
Thank you so much for that. And Suleiman will actually speak to that, because payments is critical to our strategy. And because we are the bank with the largest footprint, 33 countries across Africa, and we do have the payment rails, we are plugging into with other partners to make sure that we take advantage of the payment opportunity. And Suleiman will speak to that. So it's key on our agenda as well.
Wonderful.
Sure. Yeah. And maybe I'll speak to that, and you won't be surprised, Madam Sheto, that it's on the presentation, which means that this is an initiative that we feel that it is key to delivering on cross-border payments. And we feel that through this partnership with AfCFTA, with this Pan-African payment and settlement system, we can basically put both our strengths, us as a Pan-African bank present in 33 African countries, and the AfCFTA with this initiative that is piggybacking on the central bank. So if we do put our efforts together, we can leverage and scale, because that pilot is on, and we want to scale it, and we are certainly very much dedicated and very much looking forward to partnering with that payment platform in order to deliver on those objectives.
We need to stop here so that we can get into the other presentation by Suleiman. It's as though we're already scratching at it already. So we will be discussing how to leverage AfCFTA for growth opportunities. And this, I think, is going to be very useful for all the African businesses that are logged on this webinar, because it will try and give a direction as to what you need to do, especially in your partnership with Ecobank and the products that are there to drive this success. So I'm going to hand over to Suleiman now, who will take us through his presentation. Suleiman, the audience is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon, and again, a very warm welcome. I think when we look at AfCFTA and the target audience and what we want to discuss, both Madame Sheto and Josephine have actually scratched the surface between AfCFTA's objective under the Africa 2063, the Africa We Want agenda, and our own agenda as it's been designed and devised by our founding fathers, who have had this very great vision 30 years ago of creating a Pan-African bank across Africa with a vision to basically facilitate payments and trade within African countries through integration. So my presentation would basically cover some of the points that we really looked at in terms of the AfCFTA objective. And if I just want to bring some of the points back from Madame Sheto's presentation, we know that SMEs are supposed to really develop based on regional value chains. So it's a very important point of the AfCFTA, based on the fact that the AfCFTA would be creating a single market across the continent. The second point is that the objective is to enhance the SMEs' access to a continental market. So really scale up in terms of their own market strategies and be able to leverage on what we expect would be the increase in terms of intra-Africa trade. So when we look at the advantages of the AfCFTA, I want to also insist on one point, which is the fact that the expectation is that African countries in general would move from exporting raw data or raw commodities to really adding value to it, because some of the studies have shown that when African countries trade between themselves, they tend to add more value. So the idea is really for us to bring this value addition, and this would be done through the SMEs, and this is the expectation will be then that the job would follow and we would have the welfare gains that is expected from this AfCFTA implementation. So when we then move into our own value proposition as Ecobank, I want to reiterate the point that I just made, which is the fact that we are really at the crossroads between Ecobank that has been created and developed some 30 years, over the last 30 years as a Pan-African bank, with that great vision, which I want to spell again, which is to build a world-class Pan-African bank and contribute to the economic development and financial integration of Africa. This clearly states the motto and is really at the crossroads of what AfCFTA is to deliver. And we are committed, just like our mission statement is stating it, to basically deliver accessible and reliable financial products and services to our customers, mainly on SMEs. And we want to, the main advantage that we want to offer is obviously our network advantage. We are present in 35 countries with 33 banking licenses in Africa, and these 35 countries are basically supplemented with international presence through an office in Paris, but also Beijing, Dubai, and London. So we have a network, and we want to help you take full advantage of that network. And we'll go through it when we get into the specific product. But maybe before that, just cover the fact that we are in 33 countries, which is a very important factor. Because we are the largest bank with the largest footprint across Africa. We cover some 13 million clients in terms of our mobile app. We have 24 million clients across, and that would also talk to some of the question we had, which is basically building trust between all the constituencies of trade, and being in both ends of those transactions typically would bring trust and be basically help catalyze those transactions. So we obviously, this network is supplemented within some of the countries by express points, which are basically extensions of some of our network in order to basically be closer to you as clients and be able to serve you where you are based. So again, we have different segmentation, but we know that SMEs are more than 80% of businesses in Africa. And if we want AfCFTA to be successful, we want SMEs need to take full advantage, and SMEs need to grasp all the necessary measures and take the necessary actions to basically reap the benefits of the AfCFTA. So we will be focusing more and more on SMEs, and I believe Madam Josephine has already covered some of the initiatives that are directed to SMEs, and I'll cover some of the products and solutions and channels that we can also put in place for you. Obviously, the first point would be in terms of, at least for those of you that are not yet Ecobank clients, to know that we have this liquidity and account services. And basically, both from a resident perspective or non-resident perspective, you can open an account and obviously be able to transact based on those accounts and be able to place liquidity and manage your own liquidity. This is something that most commercial banks would offer, but I want to insist on a specific product, which is again leveraging on our network advantage. This product, through what we call the Pan-African account, allows to be able to collect payment across our network. Let's say you are an SME having a bank account in Mali, and you have a client that needs to pay you for some goods or services in, let's say, Togo, which is another country within the same monetary region. Then we are able to basically accept payments directly into your account in Mali from an agent in Togo. So that is to say that your client can walk into an agent in one of those countries and be able to directly credit your account in one of those regions, specifically Mali, if this is where you're based. So this is once again leveraging on our Pan-African platform and really allowing you to leverage on that network coverage that we have across the footprint. So this is a very singular product, and which really talks to the agenda of the AfCFTA. The other products obviously cover payments products, because we know that once contract is made, it is important that we make sure that the trade is effected through payments. And it is important to ensure that when the contract is done and between the trader, the exporter and the importer, they have this necessity either to import or to export. We need as a bank to facilitate that contracting, meaning that enabling this payment of those goods and services to be effective. And we can do that through our own network. Again, we are present in 33 countries, and this can be done directly. And this is something that we can do on a very straightforward and effective and cost-effective matter. The second point, and I think Madam Cheto has actually anticipated on this, is our willingness and our drive to be partnering with the Pan-African payment and settlement system. That is an initiative that has been actually driven through the AfCFTA, but with AfreximBank. And while this initiative is to basically leverage on central banks to be able to settle payments through local currency instead of going through foreign currency, we would be also adding to that solution when it is fully live, our own platform, which means that by virtually being able to be agents of those clearing system in 33 countries, we can basically transact in those 33 countries seamlessly within our network. So this would be something that we will be offering as a partner to the PAP's agenda. The idea being basically to ensure that the trade payments are facilitated across the continent. One last point regarding payment is obviously to draw attention on our mobile money offering through Ecobank Mobile. I know that we have close to 13 to 14 million clients, but this is to encourage all of you to also continue to use this service. And those of you that are not having this wallet yet, this is a very important tool to be able to make low value payments, but also high number in terms of being able to scale. And this covers some payments around bills payments and also even salary payments. So an important offering that we also have across the network. So payments, we cannot talk about payments without covering also the FX, which is the currency. And luckily, we are present in 33 countries, plus our presence in France with a banking license. What it entails us is to be able to both trade in local currencies in all those countries that we cover, but also be able to trade in G10 currencies, which are the hard currencies. We know that AfCFTA is basically pushing for an agenda where this trading would be done through local currency, and we're ready for that based on our network and present in this clearing system. But in the meantime, we get to that promised land, we can basically broker these payments across hard currencies and be able to make payment in an effective and cost-effective matter. So I've covered the G10 currencies, but we also have coverage of some of the more exotic currencies, one of which are the Chinese renminbi and the Indian rupee. So these are currencies that we can still trade off based on our partnership with some of the correspondent banks that we have. Then we get into trade finance solutions. one of the key aspects, and I think one of the discussion point was also to look at how we can basically build trust between the exporter and an importer. And this is basically the offering through our trade services product suite. That goes between import letters of credit, guarantees, avalized bills, etc. So these are products that are relatively straightforward, but the most important thing is that we can deliver them seamlessly, leveraging on regional processing centers that we have. One for the Francophone region based in Abidjan, and another one based in Lagos, Nigeria. So this is to ensure that we can both obviously manage those instruments, but be able to interact with the clients in the language that is most appropriate for them to be comfortable with the trade. So the trade service offering is very important, and it is all the more important that with more and more focus being put on KYC, we can see that, and a recent study from the AfDB, African Development Bank, have shown that one of the reasons why some of the SMEs or the clients are not getting trade financing is also related to some of the lack of KYC, governance items, etc. So where we bring value is in our partnerships that we have with some of the correspondent banks, where we've basically been able to build the framework where we have built trust that we would do the needful, and when they get to our transaction, then they can feel that those transactions are legitimate, and they can basically confirm it if there are letters of credit, or basically deal with them without further additional queries, which is an important point these days, as correspondent banks or international banks are de-risking more and more to outside of Africa. So this is one important thing. The second important thing to leverage on is our own internal ability to support each other. One of the examples that I would give is that if we have a letter of credit issued out of Ecobank Malawi, this letter of credit can be notified and confirmed by Ecobank Zambia, because we obviously have inter-affiliate credit, and then this doesn't need to go through a correspondent bank, and this obviously would have a very important impact on cost reduction. So very important point as well, again, leveraging on our network advantage. One last point still on our network is that I've mentioned our friends, our affiliate in France. Yes, as we build the intra-Africa trade, we know that there would still be imports outside Africa. And this talks to the rules of origin point, right? So in order to better aggregate, we would still need to make sure that we leverage on our presence in France to help confirm these letters of credit or this trade instrument. And we are very pleased to also advise that we have also, through Paris, we can also syndicate, meaning that if you have a client in Europe, that client, based on its own ability to discount those instruments via our own presence in Paris, would be more comfortable dealing with you and getting from you a letter of credit or a payment instrument. It could be a navalized draft that is basically being guaranteed through our own network within Africa. So this is an important point, and again, reduces the number of stops or steps in order to confirm or discount those instruments. So our EBISA capability is a great capability that most African banks would not have, and that we can use again to even improve your relationship with your partners outside the continent. Now, once we cover trade finance, we need to also address the specific items regarding the funded trade, which is trade finance. I think one of the questions was in regards to what do we do across all the relationships that we have, be it with large corporates, be it with international multinational companies. What do we do in order to harness trade within our network? And the answer is through our supply chain finance offering. How? Supply chain finance, by virtue of putting in place either receivable finance, inventory finance, all those products basically would improve the trust between the supplier and his client. How? Because we can leverage. Let's say that a Dangote in Nigeria wants to basically get some products from SME across the region, either in Cameroon or in Bamako. In that case, that SME in that region, in that country, can benefit from a supply chain finance financing from that affiliate, based on the fact that the payment risk would be really looked at from a Dangote perspective. So this would basically allow us, because we would be in both ends, first on the relationship side with the larger corporate as what we call an anchor, and on the relationship side on the SME, that would allow us to first of all reduce the due diligence, because if you were to be looking at a bank that would be banking only one side of the transaction, that bank would need to improve on due diligence and looking at who is on the other side of the transaction. In our case, most likely through our network, we can basically have both ends of the information, and which would reduce the due diligence on the credit and payment front, and be able to allow us to put in place those long-tenured, or should I say short-term tenured facilities, but longer than what it would normally be, because of the comfort that we would build based on our knowledge of both parties on the end of the transaction. So this would have the advantage of giving liquidity upfront to the supplier, which is good, because then it means that the supplier would reduce the payment or performance risk on the delivery. And on the other hand, the anchor or whoever is the client of that supplier would be able to benefit from longer terms in terms of payment terms. And because we would leverage on the credit and we would build the comfort on the credit, this would obviously reduce the pricing at which this offering would be made. So this is an important product that also addresses the point that we looked at. Another key product is the trade structured commodity financing. I think we touched on it, and I at the beginning of my presentation, I actually reiterated one of the key objectives of the AfCFTA, which is to really move our countries from exporting raw commodities to really adding value before the exporting. And this export needs to be done within the continent, and like Madam Sheto was actually alluded, peasant in some of the countries can be looking at delivering the raw commodity to another country where there would at least be some sort of value addition. And for example, if we're looking at cotton, a peasant in Burkina Faso can be delivering that cotton to Benin, where it could be benefiting from value addition from some Guinea before it is actually exported, or even, you know, hopefully at the end of this objective, we would still be having some manufacturing ability and be able to deliver, you know, more value additions through these commodity aspects. So the last point that I will cover before finishing is really our digital channel. We covered some of the target markets, we covered the products. I want to cover very quickly the channels, and most of you, I'm sure, would be very familiar with these channels. And these go from Ecobank Pay to the POS, the cash in transit, etc. But I want to insist on one, which is the QR code through the Ecobank Pay, which basically allows through a touch point through a mobile application to be able to for any client to be able to make payments by just scanning the QR code. This is a very powerful product. I know that a lot of SMEs have found it very useful, and we certainly encourage all of you to look into this product, which allows also to review really, you know, what you've received as payments. And this product is interoperable, meaning that, you know, the client does not need to be an Ecobank client in order to make these payments. So POS are relatively straightforward, but this is a product that we have on offering. And I want to cover also the payment by cards. I think Josephine have mentioned some of the digital marketplace that we've created with partnership with Fluto Wave, iPay, etc. And these card payments are basically allowing, you know, once the market is expanded through those digital marketplace, be able to leverage on these card payments to get paid and manage their liquidities for the SMEs, which we know it's a very, very important. The other channel that we know and that has been one of the key offering for Ecobank is OmniLite, directed to SMEs, and basically allowing you from the comfort of your office to get into your account, review your liquidity, your balances, and make seamless payments. And this can be done across, you know, either through book-to-book payments. You can do third-party transfers and international transfers, and this can be done from the comfort of your office. And you can even be, I should be saying that this can be done from the comfort of your laptop or mobile device, because this is basically geographically agnostic, meaning that you can do this from anywhere in the world. One product that I want to quickly touch on is eTrade, because I've touched on the trade products, and eTrade is through a product that we call OmniPlus, is also an offering that we have, which allows you to initiate trade transaction online and basically from the comfort of your office, and be able to get the relevant authorization, just like you would do for OmniLite. So as Josephine have mentioned, I want to reiterate the point that once we have this product offering, what we actually set ourselves to do is to make sure that these are seamless and they are affordable. And what they allow you is to scale your business. And in order to do that, we've created and availed for all SMEs the business account, and that business account would give ground for free access to Ecobank Pay. It would give you free access to OmniLite as a digital payment tool, and would also give you access to this Google My Business, as Josephine have mentioned, which would basically allow you to expand your market reach through this channel. So this is an important offering, and we obviously encourage all of you to do the same. And one last point would be on the Elevate offering. I would not dwell much, but we all know that once we establish that SMEs are the gist of the businesses in Africa, we also know that women-led business are 50% of the SMEs. So it's on the cognizance of this fact that we've actually did this very specific offering that we call Elevate, which basically aims to improve access to additional markets to these women-led businesses, but also looking at some of the capability enhancements, because I've mentioned earlier some of the KYC requirements or government expectations. So this would basically help to bridge those gaps, in addition to expanding the network, the networking access to those women. So this offering is directed to women that have to businesses that have either 50% ownership of women, are looking at expanding or selling women targeted products, or where the women are 20% of the boards of directors or in management. So clearly looking at expanding and supporting those segments of our client base. And this would be through the product that I've mentioned, but also supplemented by the non-financial aspects, which have, like I said, is also on training. Case in point today, but we do have, just like Justin I've mentioned, the program with the ODA NEPAD, which is still a very good program that is actually not only expanding some of the capabilities, but also opening some of the marketing capabilities across the continent. So it's an important initiative. So this is the end of my presentation. I want to conclude by reiterating the point earlier made, which is our resolve as a Pan-African bank to be helping SMEs as a key constituencies of the African business environment to succeed under AfCFTA. And we believe that within your success will reside our own success. So we look forward to engaging. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Suleiman, for that detailed product presentation covering strong footprint across Africa, product services, as well as our digital products. This is very useful and shows our positioning as a bank and a financial institution to help our SMEs and African businesses to take their rightful place in Africa. So let me start with one question for you, Suleiman, which seems to be at the base of the discussion for today. So considering that private sector participation is important for implementing AfCFTA, how then can Ecobank and other financial service institutions increase access to financing for SMEs and micro companies and African businesses, just so that they will be able to then have that capacity to add value to the raw materials that are predominantly being exported across Africa? Thank you.
Thank you. I think access to SMEs I would say, in three aspects. One is the ability of SMEs to basically expand their own capabilities. And I've touched on some of the aspects related to governance, some of the aspects related to KYC. And this is what had actually triggered the partnership that we have with ODA NEPAD in order to basically build up those capabilities. So that's one. Because before we look at financing, we need to look at capabilities. Secondly, market access, right? Expanding the market access. I think we've talked a lot about it in terms of what is, what are the potential across the regional corridors that AfCFTA is offering. And what we do as a Pan-African bank is basically enhance those access, and we've talked about our digital marketplace offering, basically allowing SMEs to feature their products and expand their market reach outside of their own normal or traditional client base. So that's a very important offering, which is supplemented by obviously all these payments or digital channel offerings that we have. The last point is regarding trade financing, and I've mentioned our supply chain finance offering, which is basically being able, once we cover the fact that there's a demand, there's a need, we have a match between an importer or an exporter. How do we put in place the right instrument in order to create the trust that will get from contacting to contracting? And I've talked about how, as a Pan-African bank, we can basically ensure that we reduce the information asymmetry between the seller and the buyer by ensuring that we build up trust through those instruments, or by putting in place the supply chain finance. So these are the 3 points that I would think would cover some of this question.
Thank you, Suleiman. This is well said. There's a question from the platform. This is a bit touchy for most of the economic regions in Africa. So I'm going to put it the way the individual wrote it. He says, what part can Ecobank play in the area of payment processing, as this is a very difficult aspect? For instance, we are in Cameroon and most of our clients in Nigeria struggle to make payments to us. So what can we do as a bank to support them in getting those payments too? Thank you. Thank you.
I think the answer resides really on how we can scale up the Pan-African payment and settlement system. I've mentioned, because that question is actually right on spot, because it puts on the agenda the question of currency and the FX regimes that are put in place by central banks. In Cameroon, for example, in order to access foreign currency, you need obviously documentation, and documentation will make you go through the euro before you make the payments in other currencies, which we have capability of doing. However, it would be more seamless and cost effective if we can basically skip the leg where we do the cross-currency transfer between the CFA euro before going back to the right to the other currency. And the PAPS is actually aiming at doing that, and that's why I've mentioned this as a very key initiative. It is actually on a pilot phase in some of the countries, notably in the Anglophone zone. But our ability to connect both our own capabilities in terms of clearing local currency to the PAPS, because PAPS would then allow the central banks to create a compensation mechanism where there's going to be compensation between Naira and CFA, between the banks and the suppliers. But this is premised on the agreement from the buyer and the seller to be settling in local currency. So that's also an important aspect, but subject to that acceptance, then PAPS is what I see as a solution to what we are looking at in terms of expanding the payment capabilities.
Thank you very much. Everybody seems to be quite ready for the PAPS. We hope that the value brought on board delivers what we all hope to get out of it. At this point in time, we will be closing. There are loads and tons of questions, but we've run out of time and may not be able to attend to each and every one of them, unfortunately. Suleiman, I want to thank you for your wonderful presentation one more time. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Vera for the closing remarks so that we can draw the curtain on this first episode. Vera, the audience is yours.
If I could chip in something on the questions very quickly, to say that we will respond to the questions and we'll send the responses via email to the registered email addresses that we have. So we don't have time to respond to them now, but we will definitely respond to each and every one of them, and we would send it to you via mail. So thanks a lot, and keep the questions coming. Vera, over to you.
Thank you very much, Josephine. Ladies and gentlemen, in bringing this webinar to a close, our sincere thanks goes to the AfCFTA Secretariat, represented here today by Madam Beatrice Chato. Madam, your presence today and the information shared with our customers are invaluable. To you, our cherished customers, thank you for making the time. Your participation and engaging questions were very much appreciated. In the coming days, we will share with you more information on our trade products and solutions to help your businesses grow faster and go further. Thank you, and we wish you all a productive week.